Have you ever felt like you're in a battle you can't win? Like the odds are stacked against you and you're fighting alone? What if I told you that you're not alone and that God Himself is fighting for you? Today, we're studying Psalm 35, verse 1 through 5, where David cries out to God in the midst of his battles. This passage is a powerful reminder that God fights for us, and it's filled with lessons that can transform how we face our own struggles. Whether you're feeling attacked, discouraged, or overwhelmed, this devotional will inspire and encourage you to trust in the God who fights for you. Let's start by reading Psalm 35, 1 through 5. Plead my cause, O Lord, with those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take hold of shield and buckler, and stand up for my help. Also, draw out the spear, and stop those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. Let those be turned back and brought to confusion who plot my hurt. Let them be like chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord pursue them. Psalm 35, verse 1 to 5 reminds us that we are not left to fight our battles on our own. God is our defender, our shield, and our salvation. This passage is a powerful prayer of David, crying out to God for deliverance from his enemies. It is a reminder that when we are in the midst of the fight, we can call on the Lord to contend on our behalf. Today, let this passage inspire and encourage you to trust in the God who fights for you. 1. The cry for divine intervention. Verse 1. Plead my cause, O Lord, with those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. David begins this psalm with a bold and heartfelt plea. Plead my cause, O Lord. The word plead here means to argue a case, to defend, or to take up someone's cause. David is not asking God to sit back and watch. He is asking God to step into the battle and fight for him. This is a prayer of desperation, but also a prayer of faith. David knows that God is not distant or indifferent. He is a God who acts on behalf of his people. In our own lives, we often face situations where we feel outnumbered, outmatched, or overwhelmed. It could be a conflict at work, a struggle in a relationship, or a season of spiritual warfare. In these moments, we can follow David's example and cry out to God. We don't have to rely on our own strength or wisdom. We can call on the Lord to plead our cause. He is our advocate, our defender, and our champion. Remember, God is not only willing, but also able to fight for you. Trust Him to step into your situation and act on your behalf. 2. The armor of God. Verse 2. Take hold of shield and buckler, and stand up for my help. David's prayer continues with a vivid image of God taking up weapons of war. The shield and buckler symbolize protection and strength. In ancient battles, a shield was essential for deflecting arrows and blows, while a buckler was a smaller shield used for close combat. David is asking God to arm himself and come to his rescue. This imagery reminds us of the spiritual armor described in Ephesians 6:10-18. As believers, we are engaged in a spiritual battle, and God has provided us with His armor, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the gospel of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit. But even as we put on this armor, we must remember that it is God who equips us and fights for us. He is our ultimate protector and defender. 3. The assurance of salvation. Verse 3. Also draw out the spear and stop those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. David's prayer becomes even more specific as he asks God to draw out the spear against his enemies. This weapon symbolizes God's active involvement in the battle. But amidst the imagery of warfare, David also seeks something deeper, the assurance of God's salvation. He wants to hear God say, I am your salvation. Salvation here is not just about deliverance from physical enemies, it is about the assurance of God's presence, protection, and victory. It is a reminder that no matter how fierce the battle, God is with us, and He will bring us through. This assurance gives us hope and confidence, even in the darkest moments. The shame of the enemy, verse 4. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. Let those be turned back and brought to confusion who plot my hurt. David's prayer takes a turn as he asks God to bring shame and dishonor upon his enemies. At first glance, this might seem harsh, but it's important to understand the context. David is not seeking personal revenge. He is asking for God's justice to prevail. He wants those who are acting wickedly to be exposed and stopped, so that God's righteousness may be revealed. In our own lives, we may face people or situations that seem unjust or unfair. It's natural to want to see justice done. But instead of taking matters into our own hands, we can follow David's example and bring our concerns to God. He is the ultimate judge, and He will deal with our enemies in His perfect timing and way. The victory of the righteous, verse 5. Let them be like chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord pursue them. David concludes this section of his prayer with a powerful image of his enemies being scattered like chaff before the wind. Chaff is the worthless husk that is separated from the grain during threshing. It is light and easily blown away by the wind. David is asking God to render his enemies powerless and insignificant, just as chaff is blown away. This imagery reminds us that no matter how strong or intimidating our enemies may seem, they are no match for the power of God. The angel of the Lord is on our side, and He will drive away our enemies. Our path may be difficult, but the path of the wicked is ultimately doomed. God will ensure that His people are victorious. Psalm 35 verse 1 through 5 is a powerful reminder that we serve a God who fights for us. When we face battles, we don't have to rely on our own strength or wisdom. We can call on the Lord to plead our cause. He is our shield, our buckler, and our salvation. He will bring justice, scatter our enemies, and ensure our victory. As you go through your day, remember that you are not alone in your battles. God is with you, and He is fighting for you. Cry out to Him in prayer, trust in His protection, and rest in the assurance of His salvation. No matter how fierce the battle, you can stand firm in faith, knowing that the Lord is on your side. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Exodus 14:14. Amen.